Thank you so much for coming to the BSO's concert. Today, we are so honored to have a special guest, Dr. William Banfield. Let me introduce, before we introduce him on the stage, well, he's technically on the stage already, but let me just read his bio and just such a diverse background and achievement. And we just honored to have him in Bloomington and perform his Symphony number 6. So Dr. William Banfield is a composer, educator, author, jazz guitarist, and he served as a professor and director of Africana Studies Center at the Berklee College of Music, where he also taught in the Department of Composition and graduate program from 2005 to 2020. Now Professor Emeritus, he has been honored by Berklee College of Music for his founding of the institution's Black Music Culture Studies. And prior to his service at Berklee, Dr. Banfield served as the director of the IU Soul Review from 1992 to 1996, and assistant professor in the Department of African American and African Diaspora Studies at Indiana University, Bloomington. And during his time at IU, he initiated the Undine Smith Moore collection of scores and the manuscripts of Black composers at the Archives of African American Music and Culture, a core source for identifying musical compositions supporting Triple AMC's current partnership with the Bloomington Symphony Orchestra. And the rest you can read on this program that is available on the door. But he has been here in Bloomington since this Thursday, and we're just so grateful to have this partnership with Triple MC to make this possible. So please welcome Dr. William Banfield.
Okay, good. I'm good.
Okay, so I thought that we can take a little moment here today to talk about, who you are, your life, our collaboration, and obviously the piece that we are presenting. But first, we were talking about this little small connections that we have in this musical, or myself and Dr. Banfield. Would you like to talk a little about it?
No, let's just start.
Okay. So basically, my teacher has worked with you in the past, in 2012. And then my teacher's teacher has also worked with him in 1992.
Wow.
So there's like this connection of this, mentor and in the generations, but it's just we found out this and it's such a, realized such a small world. But let's see. So you are no stranger to Bloomington community. You taught at IU from 1992 to 1997. How did you get to Bloomington?
Well, I like that you start off with the notion of connections because that's very important in music. It's one of the things that makes music very rich, and its ability to connect across generations. And I remember your great mentor. She conducted this same symphony at the National Symphony. They did my Symphony 6 in D.C. in 2012, I think. Oh, it was before that. Yeah, my goodness, these years go by. But the National Symphony did my symphony. She conducted it. And it was a concert with some of my mentors were on that same concert. David Baker and I think Hale Smith were on that concert. And we were all honored at the Kennedy Center with this concert with your maestro, your teacher, conducting my 6th symphony. So it's like she touched it, and then now you're touching it. I don't know how many years ago, 20 years afterwards, whatever. But interesting enough, the symphony that you're going to hear, and Roy and I talked about this, I think it's important for audiences to have a context, a cultural context for the music that they're hearing. I love that you all are doing American music. This is really, really critically important in this time, particularly because I think that the world needs to know the traditions that carry all the information and all the love, and certainly our American traditions are very important. But to your point, how I got here is I was working on my doctorate at the University of Michigan. You're doing your doctorate, you're getting your doctoral studies now, and this would have been a little bit while ago. You're laughing. And so I was there at University of Michigan, and the two things I want to say to connect to this piece, we had just had Leonard Bernstein in Ann Arbor, and he was my hero. So I got to hang out with him, and he gave me some very specific instructions about what he wanted me to do in the culture as an American composer. So we talked about it. I said, yes, Leonard, okay, Mr. Bernstein, blah, 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 we hung out. And he died just before I got here. And one of the commissions I got at that time, I was still a young person, was with the Akron Symphony. It's my 6th symphony, and the first movement was called, what's the first movement? I don't know, if Bernstein wrote it. And so I had just come as a graduate student here about that time to have my music played at IU. I was at the University of Michigan. When I got to IU, some mentors of mine that became my mentors said, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to go to New York and be like Quincy Jones. I had no intention of being a professor or anything like that. I just wanted to get my doctorate and go out and make music. And the professors here who knew what I was doing said, you would be real, you can do that, but you should think about the academy, grounding your work in the academy and building your life around that. And so what brought me here was that, and then as soon as I graduated, I got hired here at IU, and I got hired in the Department of Afro-American Studies, and I did things in music and Afro-American Studies, and this was the place that I learned the academy, how to bring music in, how to talk about that, how to engage courses and create curriculum, which that then began one of the things that I did in my professional life as a professor. So I learned to be a young professor here at 30 years old. How old are you, 27, 28? Not you, I mean. When you're doing your doctorate, you're about 20, 26, 27, 20, right around in there. So my first job after my doctorate was at IU as a young professor. So to your question, I came here, I'm kind of long-winded, huh? I came here as a graduate student, then got a job as a young professor, and when I came here, I had gotten this great instruction from Leonard Bernstein. He told me what he wanted me to do. He said, this is what you need to do. And here we are 30 years later, and you and I are doing exactly what Leonard Bernstein told us to do. So congratulations to you as well. Because his whole thing is the importance, yeah. I mean, it takes a lot of courage for a conductor to come in and curate American music. Because everybody wants to hear Beethoven. I love Beethoven. Da 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 da. Sing the line. Da 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 what? And then the next line, the development. Da 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 da. That's funky. Da 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 da. But that's great. But we have traditions here too. We have bluegrass music, and country music, and rock and roll, and jazz, and hip hop, and all that stuff. And those are our musics, and the orchestra should do much more to incorporate that language in the repertoire so younger generations understand what's important about those traditions, because they tell our stories. American music tells our stories. So that you're doing a concert like that, and will continue to do that. Yeah.
I mean, I'm originally from Japan, so some of the music that we have in America is still quite new to me to this day. So like just studying your Symphony No. 6 just itself, I learned so much about this history and trajectory of American music. And this might be a good point, a good time to just kind of shift the talk to your Symphony No. 6.
Yeah.
So it incorporates voices of 5 distinct American musicians and a composer who inspired you. And as you say, it starts with Leonard Bernstein. And then the second movement is in the mood of Duke Ellington. And then the third movement incorporates these two trumpets solo that imitates the style of Miles Davis and Dizzy Gillespie. And the fourth movement is Sarah Vaughan. How did you sort of, what kind of connections that you have with these artists? And you sort of talked about with the Bernstein, you know, you met him. And by the way, you should see the picture that he showed me, the picture when you were in Michigan at the you and Bernstein on the table, which is just so surreal to me because he's also another one of my musical heroes. But what are some of the connections you have with these artists?
Well, I think by that time, I think what Bernstein was telling us to do is to make sure that we celebrate the stories of the legacies here. And so it made sense then, if you're going to have 5 songs for 4 American voices, certainly one had to be a singer, and one of the greatest American singers of all time. I like Beyonce and Whitney Houston, I do. I think they're great. But Sarah Vaughan, everybody know, right? I mean, come on. I mean, if you don't know Sarah Vaughan, I mean, if those of you who are not younger, when you hear this voice, you'll go, oh my God, that's really singing. I mean, and she just had this incredible range, that sensibility, but the color of her voice is unmistakable. So we had to have Sarah Vaughan, right, one of the great American singers. She happened to be also an incredible pianist and perfect pitch, and she was a really incredible musician. Could sing anything that the beboppers could sing. So, and she was mentoring. She and Mary Lou Williams mentored a lot of the jazz musicians. So you think about those musicians too. The two that you think about that were prominent. Obviously, Miles Davis. Everybody knows Miles Davis, right? And then Dizzy Gillespie. So those were the 4 songs for 5 American voices. It was Leonard Bernstein, first movement. Then there's Duke Ellington, the second movement, the great master of American music. And then there's Dizzy Gillespie, Miles Davis, and the great American singer, Sarah Vaughan.
Yeah, thank you. And as I said, you know, I think there are a few moments that you all will recognize some of the tunes from these, you know, well-known songs by these musicians, and I think that's something that we should all look forward to when you're listening to the symphony. Now, so after you taught at IU, and you moved on to some other careers elsewhere, and you were still at the very young professor at that time. Would you mind telling us about sort of your career trajectory, what happened after you wrote this symphony?
Well, I think what happens, and I'll try not to be so long-winded, I know we have to watch our time. I think what happens is, this was the 90s. Seems like caveman time now, right? And in the 1990s, we were wanting to experiment and do all these things. The 60s was like that too. 50s was like that for sure. But I think in the 90s, it was the explosion of media, popular culture. And those of us that were early professors, we were trained in our doctoral studies to include those things as a part of the curriculum. So I think what happened to me is that because I had the symphonic things, and by the way, I'm from Detroit, the greatest music city in the country, by the way, duh. And we grew, Chicago's second or third, but Detroit is number 1. You know, we had such a vibrant culture in Detroit. I mean, we had the symphony, we had a Motown, gospel music, classical music, obviously R&B traditions, and the great record company that's there was Motown. So all the young people went to this great high school called Cass Tech. Even Diana Ross went to my high school. My father, who's 101 years old, went to Cass Tech. He was in the aeronautic design department at Cass Tech. Cass Tech, the high school we went to, was the #1 public high school in the country in Detroit. And it had the #1 music department as well. So we had all this music and all this culture, and, you know, it was a vibrant city. And so by the time I graduated and was ready, after I went to Boston to study, And then I did my master's in theology and philosophy at University, Boston University and Harvard. There, they had a dual program in philosophy of the arts. And then when I came to University of Michigan, I did my doctorate in musical arts in composition. But I had a minor study in ethnomusicology. So already I'm telling you all that to say, I was ready to go change the world, right? So by the time the 1990s happened, I was like, okay, let's do it. And the industry was ready for those kinds of young professors and those kind of music producers who could do all those things. So there was a lot of opportunities for young professors to go in various places and create departments that did that. Because my work was to create new pedagogy and new philosophy of culture and arts, and the world in the 1990s and the academy was ready for that, and you could see it happening in popular culture. To your point, then I got very busy in being able to be an entrepreneurial professor. I was still young, 30s or whatever. So with that energy, when you're 30 and you got a lot of things you want to do, people tend to want you because you come with that energy, which creates student interest and curriculum interest and all that stuff. And so that's the way the world was at that time. I mean, they were really moving things. So I think that the short answer to your question is that's the cultural context that I entered into in the 1990s as a young professor. And I went here, but then I did my things here. And then other people would say, well, come over here, we'll do this. And you're trying to learn how to, okay, all right, let me move. And I wanted to be back east. I had nothing against IU in the Midwest because the Midwest is the greatest part of this country. We know that, right? Yeah, in the middle of the country is where the heartbeat is, right? It's where the true people are. I love New York too, but the truth people are in the Midwest, right? Right? Hello, okay. So you can give that a clap. Come on, Indiana, come on. So I think that I wanted to then get back to the East Coast, and I accepted a post in Minneapolis first. My wife and I got married here. And then we moved to Minneapolis, and they allowed me to create my own program. I was the director of American Cultural Studies at the University of St. Thomas in Minneapolis, St. Paul. And it was the Twin Cities, it was cool. Prince was there, hello. So I said, I'm going to where Prince is, right? So and I got a chance to meet him and hang out with them and all when I was there. And Bobby McFerrin had moved there, and he had a post as the composer, as in residence at the St. Paul Chamber Orchestra. So I moved to St. Paul. And it was a vibrant city, and Minneapolis, St. Paul was very cool for music and culture. It's the only state in the country where the taxes pay for the arts. The only place in the country. Did you know that? Minneapolis, St. Paul, yeah. So we encourage young musicians to move to a place that has a vibrant culture that actually supports the arts. The only state in the country that does that is Minnesota. So I moved there in the 90s. Yeah, it's a great thing, So I moved to Minneapolis in the 90s, right from here, and then I stayed there for a number of years. And then Berklee College of Music invited me to come there and to start their cultural studies program there. So I said, I'll go to Berklee. That was becoming to be the one of the big music schools at the time. IU was big. They were saying they were number one. And Juilliard was number one. They had this fight in the 90s. Who's the number one music school? IU was like, we're the best. And IU truly was in a fantastic music school, and it still is. But in those days, now Berklee claims it's number one, and it's the biggest. What? So I think in that whole milieu of things, that's when I entered into the world, and I began to kind of craft the things I wanted to do.
Well, that's just amazing. I mean, just hearing this extensive career, and some of our current music students in the college are just kind of overwhelmed and always we have so much, including myself. But just hearing your idea, your career, and how much, because obviously while you are accepting these teaching positions and spending a lot of time on your research, and you have this significant amount of your collection of composition, and you're a performer, and I think this is what true artists that I, always idealize. You doing, everything all at once, studying, teaching, and performing, composing. So I think this is just really, amazing to follow your career. Now, one of the BSO's core mission is to introduce some of the underrepresented music, underrepresented composers, and we have this wonderful partnership with Triple AMC. And then you are when you were at IU in the 90s, that's something that you were involved or you started.
Yeah. Well, interesting enough, that also my hero here and mentor was David Baker. He wrote a book called The Black Composer Speaks. And so each generation says, well, we can do that. I had no business writing a book. But in my carol was David Booker's book, The Black Composer Speaks. It was done by David Baker and Lyda Belt Baker, who is here. I just called her today, and sending hugs to Lyda. I hope I can see her while I'm here. But I was working on this book, and I looked, and I said, these are 14. I said, they're looking at James Brown. What about Earth, Wind, and Fire and George Clinton? Another generation, right? So graduate students, thinking, oh, they can change the world. So I opened up the book, and I called the publisher, whose name was Norman Horrocks. Never forget it. And so I was like 28 or something like that. And I said, sir, I just would like to, tell you that there's my generation, which is 30 years, I'm 30 years younger than David Baker, right? We have a tradition, and I think you should. He said, well, would you like to write the book about it? Now, you imagine the main publisher asking that. And I said, well, absolutely. I've never written a book before. When you're 28, you're dumb at 28 right now. No, just playing. So I said, yes, sir, I'm interested in the research of this. He said, well, why don't you write the book? Now, that never happens, by the way. And I said, yes, sir. I was finishing my doctorate, and so I can write a book, right? So I went around the country and interviewed 40 of the leading black composers of the day. Now, today, that's the leading book in the field. I didn't know when I was doing it then that it would be the leading book in that field. It just so happened that I spent 2 or 3 years going around the country, and in those days, there was no digital. You had a tape recorder. You tape the record, and you take the tape recorder out, and then you have to transcribe it, which is you have to listen to it and write down everything that the composer said. So it took me about 3 years. But I met all these guys and ladies because I was a young composer, they were giving me their wisdom, and I learned a lot. It's in the griot tradition of mentoring. So I would talk to these older composers about what they did, what their education was, and I had a pretty good, tight set of questions that were really good out of my ethnomusicology studies. I understood to ask about cultural dimensions and education and what impact the culture had and what they were attempting to do. So it was a very methodological interview, but it was able to bring these things out. So I was able to talk to all these composers, and the press published the book. It's called Landscapes in Color, Conversations with Black American Composers. It took them a decade to do it, because it took me 10 years to actually go around and have all these conversations. And, wherever I could have them. But these were the leading people. I mean, big people like Herbie Hancock and Tony Williams and T.J. Anderson, everybody that was writing for the symphony, and they were doing jazz as well. I interviewed all these folks. So that's what began that study. But it started here. When I first got here, I took some of those original manuscripts and started the Undine Smith Moore collection of manuscripts, because I had all the manuscripts from all the leading black composers. Nobody else had it. I did. So I started this collection here, and it's still here. I was here with Dr. Cooper. I was doing go over there and seeing all the wonderful things that he's done with the whole center. I mean, it was just a drawer when I was here. Now it's like he's got a whole library and all these things, because he and Portia Molson and the folks here over the last 20 years have developed it. But my little area, the Undine Smith Moore, started by me having the transcripts of the interviews and the scores. So what I did is I got scores from each composer. We didn't have finale then. We had your actual score. So that was you wrote. There's no computers and Mac computers then. They had Mac computers, I think, then, didn't they?
Probably not, right?
Really?
Well, I guess in the early 90s.
Think early 90s, but the technology hadn't come yet to the manuscript. You still had to write it out. So I had those scores from all those composers. So when I collected those scores, I was able to take some of those scores from the book. I think I'm correct, right, Dr. Cooper? And then I created the Undine Smith Moore collection of manuscripts and manuscripts by black composers, and we put them here in those days, whatever it was, is the Afro-American archives with Portia Mosby. We put them there, and it's to this day they're still there. Yeah.
That's really amazing that you know got to see these composers and how you yourself had a manuscripts. Already,
Yeah, manuscripts. Yeah.
So okay, so I think the time is running up, but before we end our conversation, let's just go back to music real quick.
Yes, sir.
Your
Yes,
Symphony
sir.
Number 6. So we've already talked about these 5 different artists. Now, what would you particularly like audience to sort of listen for throughout the piece?
I really appreciate your work. I really appreciate your work. The way in which you get the orchestra to speak that music. I think people are really interested in process as well. Like what happens when the music and the process leaves the mind and the heart of the creator, then it gets transferred to paper or to whatever the young people do now with computers or whatever. And then they have a score. Those are your musical ideas. And then we have to trust you. Right? Yeah.
Big
That's a scary moment, boy, I tell you. The conductor get up there and do it too fast, or, he or she, But in this case, that doesn't happen often because you all are so trained and so sensitive. So I'm just was in awe of you watching you rehearse your orchestra. So I'm sitting there hearing those notes being done with a new voice, which is your voice, your interpretation. And I don't think audiences understand that when you do new work, you have to study the new work and understand everything that I put in those thousands. It's literally thousands of notes. And it's not done by computer. I still don't use computer to write. I've got 14 symphonies, 8 operas, symphony, everything. I don't do any of that on computer. I write every note. I conceptualize every note, every chord, every rhythm. I write it down, and then I have a copyist who's been with me for 30 years. So for the point that I think is really important for people, this wonderful audience, is to know your incredible work. It's incredible. To take that music and bring that interpretation to your musicians and to hear them. Thank you so very much to you in the symphony for doing the work and bringing it to life to all of the people. That's really where the thing happens. It goes, and it belongs to you all. So that's a very exciting process.
Well, thank you. But speaking of process, on Thursday at the rehearsal,
Yeah.
When you came, and at the dress rehearsal we just had like a couple hours ago, and then you came, you speak about the music,
Yeah.
and then you bringing these stylistic, suggestions to the orchestra, and the whole energy has changed. So like having you here and having you interact with our musicians was just like there was a significant change in the sound and the energy in the room. So I think that was really important,
Yeah.
and I'm really grateful that you are here and working with our musicians, working with me. It's been such a meaningful collaborations.
No, I think I'm so glad that Dr. Cooper set this up. Let me tell you what's interesting. I know I'm being long, but that's okay. I'm the guest, so I can be a little long. In normal situations, and I've had a lot of works played at a lot of symphonies, the unions don't allow the composers to talk to the musicians. Yeah, that sounds really crazy, right? It's not allowed because the union's set up to protect the time and the money of the musicians, which is all good. But there's not a lot of talk about how the musicians need to have collaboration and opportunity to talk so that we can convey what the music is. So you're all on union time, and so what you're allowing to happen is that I had conversations with the string players and the bass players. Hey, let's do it this way. Let's do it this way. Because Beethoven's dead, right? It's like Freddie's dead. Dun, 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 dun. That's what I said. Some of you that are a little younger, you wouldn't know Freddie's dead from the 70s. But Beethoven is while his music is alive, he can't really tell us. Let's change it a little bit today, because we're feeling a little bit of more Kendrick Lamar today. You like Kendrick Lamar? So Kendrick Lamar, who's that? So there might be a contemporary sensibility. We talk about Sarah Vaughan, but there's Beyonce, there's the new generation does it. So a composer can actually say, you know what? I know it's written that way, but let's try a little bit of this. That's how music is really made. It's really made between musicians and conductors and composers who can, exchange ideas and make the music their own, each time make it fresh. That's what makes music a story of life, because it's about that life patterning. So I'm so thankful to you for allowing us to have that, because today is going to be really great. I love how you have younger musicians too playing, because that gives them an opportunity to play with the older musicians. That's how we should pattern forward. I thank you, Maestro. Thank you.
Thank you, Maestro. Thank you. Well, thank you again so much for being here with us today, and thank you to Dr. Tyrone Cooper, Triple AMC, for making this happen. So hopefully you will enjoy this special treat, such a diverse American program highlighting your legacy and then your Symphony No. 6. So we are all looking forward to performing your piece today. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Basco Chamber Theater, BSO's third concert, actually, fourth concert of the season. Yes, this is a program that I've been looking forward to the most, I would say, from the beginning of the season, because it's just so special. But before I talked about the program briefly, I just want to say how much proud I am that I got through the brutally cold winter of Bloomington. Thank you. Thank you. This is my first year living in Indiana, so I was not expecting. Like sometimes I could not even open my door in our apartment. I was like, "What is going on?" But in January I thought I was gonna die because it's just so cold. But the only thing that really saved me going through this January and February was every Tuesday I got to make music with these wonderful people, wonderful musicians of the BSO. So I thank you. Today we are collaborating two important institutions in Bloomington. And the first half we are featuring Bridges Youth Orchestra who are on stage. And in the second half, we are presenting such a special piece, Symphony Number 6 by Dr. William Banfield. And this is presenting in collaboration between Triple MC, Archives of African American Music and Culture, and Bloomington Symphony. And the composer, Dr. Banfield, is with us here today. So there's so much energy. It's gonna be fun. So I hope you enjoy it. Next piece, it's iconic Gershwin's An American in Paris, and we are welcoming our guest conductor, the conductor of the Bridges Youth Orchestra, Wei Chang. Please welcome. All right. Before we present the next piece, please let me introduce the director of the Bridges Mayo Youth Orchestra, Maggie Olivo, and then she would like to talk about this collaboration a little bit.
So I just want to say that as soon as they asked us if we were interested in a side-by-side, we didn't hesitate. We were like, yes, that sounds amazing. And then we started to learn that Dr. Banfield was going to join us on the program. And so we're like, yes, that sounds amazing. And then all of a sudden, in collaboration with Melody King and Spencer, the director of the Sounds program, we had kind of been talking about joining in. So I have to say, she brought in the Sounds musicians who have been traveling from Spencer, like to come to these rehearsals. And this week has been intense and it's been incredible. And these families combined with the Bridges Mayo families, it's been amazing to just see the true village that exists here in Bloomington. And we are so grateful for how welcoming all of these Bloomington Symphony Orchestra musicians have been for our kids. Our youngest student up here is 12 and our older musicians are 18, and this is our advanced orchestra. So if we could just give a shout out for all those that took our kids in, thank you.
Thank you, Maggie. It's been just always rewarding to work with these fantastic musicians of Bridges Orchestra. This is the growth that you see, the growth that we feel. We are growing together with the BSO side by side. It's just a wonderful experience. So next piece is Ethiopian Shadow in America by Florence Price. Hoping you will enjoy it.
Hello. I'm not going to go all the way to the center. Hello, good evening, and welcome to the second half of tonight's concert. My name is Alexis Witt, and I am the president of the board for the Bloomington Symphony. Thank you. Thank you. It is my task and my privilege to come out here tonight to sing some praises and to make at least one little plea. You know where this is going, I'm sure. But first to sing some praises, and I'd like to start by singing your praises. This is an amazing audience. This is a great turnout. I am so excited to see all of you here. So thank you. Can I ask to see, just by a quick show of hands, how many of you, this is your very first BSO concert that you've ever been to? That's fantastic. An extra special thank you for being here tonight. Whatever your reasons for coming in the doors tonight, your kid is in Bridges, you're here with the AAAMC, you just thought it sounded like a good time, whatever the reason, I hope you find more reasons to keep coming back. We're happy to see you, and we hope that you will continue to be part of this family of the BSO. Now, speaking of reasons, you may have seen in our program that this is our 55th season, and over the course of this landmark season for us, we are celebrating the 55 or more reasons why this is a great organization. 55 or more reasons why we've been around for 55 years. 55 or more reasons why we hope you will continue to support us and keep us around for at least 55 more years. Hopefully. And one of the biggest of those reasons is the fact that this community is so amazing. That you turn out for us in these numbers, that our community is vibrant and varied, and there are so many people of different backgrounds, different beliefs, different appearances, different everything in our community who get to come and be a part of these concerts. We at the BSO truly do believe that we serve our community, that our music should reflect our community, and that our community should be able to participate in the music and see themselves in the music. And this concert, perhaps more than any other concert this season, really does highlight that. And it also highlights the depth and the richness of the collaborations that we have in this community. We are so privileged and so excited to be able to partner with the AAAMC for a couple of years now. This gives us the great opportunity to work with the scholars and specialists at the AAAMC to have access to some of the things in their archives, which, if you're not familiar with what an archives is or what an archives does, the fact that a community orchestra can play things from an archives, can work with people from an archives, that's incredible. That's special. That's something that professional orchestras do, not community orchestras. So the fact that we are doing that and getting to bring that to you, to our community, is amazing. I am so proud to be a part of an organization that gets to do that. Usually it's the professionals, usually it's the folks affiliated with the university. It's not the community orchestras. So this is really unique for us. Now, another really great collaboration and another really great reason for us to exist and to continue existing that we have is this collaboration that we have with Bridges and the great young performers of the youth orchestra here. So by another show of hands, I'd like to know how many of you participated in music when you were young, by singing or playing instruments or dancing? So many hands. This is amazing. And so how many of you had the opportunity as young performers to be in a side-by-side concert? A few. I personally can remember the side-by-side concerts I played in when I was in high school, the opportunity to play next to my teacher in a professional orchestra, having that exciting experience of being on the big stage, having a real audience, not just our poor parents who were obligated to come hear us play. It was so special and so memorable. And it really put me on a path to continuing to love music and continuing to be a part of music. And I have a feeling, for those of you who had your hands up just a second ago, it was probably a contributing factor for you too. And I hope that for the young performers in Bridges and in Sound, it is a factor for them. Maybe they will stick around and continue to play in organizations like the BSO. Maybe they will continue to be a part of our audiences and other similar audiences moving forward. That is our sincere hope. Now, as you can imagine, collaborations like these, concerts like these, they're not free to produce. Even though this is almost entirely a volunteer organization, including the entirety of our board and all of our committees and all of that, those are all volunteers. We don't get paid. It still costs money, though, to put on performances like this. And we love putting on performances like this. So it is our hope that you will continue to support us in whatever ways you can, whatever that looks like for you, whether that is continuing to come to our concerts. We have some really great ones still coming up at the end of this season. We have our next big concert here at the BCT in May. We also have 2 free performances with the Reimagining Opera for Kids folks. Yay. Yeah, that's Hansel and Gretel. It's going to be at 2 of the library branches coming up in April. Free concerts. Please bring your kids, or just bring yourself. Leave the kids at home, or bring them at least. But come see us at the libraries and be a part of those concerts as well. And if you're really feeling generous and really want to have a good time with us, come to our gala in May. We're going to have a party here at the BCT. Celebrating the 55 years of the Bloomington Symphony. The theme is 1969, so we're going to have some fun. We hope to see you all at these events, and if that's out of your reach, that's fine too. Please continue to spread the word. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your dog walkers, tell everybody to come to our concerts, to keep the music happening. We can't do this without you. Donna Lafferty, our executive director, and I take turns saying this at almost every concert. We literally can't do this without all of you. And we are so happy that we get to keep doing this, hopefully for another 55 years. So please enjoy the second half of this incredible concert, and I hope to see you all again in the future.
it's a privilege for me to introduce the director of the AAAMC, Dr. Tyrone Cooper.
Awesome. Greetings, greetings. I'm Tyrone Cooper, the director of the Archives of African American Music and Culture, also known as AAAMC, Indiana University's premier repository for post-World War II Black music idioms. In 2021, the AAAMC and the Bloomington Symphony Orchestra established a meaningful partnership designed to normalize performance of compositions by Black composers within the symphonic tradition. It has been important and rewarding work mining AAAMC collections to identify composers and musical works subsequently performed by the BSO. Tonight's program is the result of our efforts, specifically the performance of Dr. William C. Banfield's Symphony No. 6, 4 Songs for 5 American Voices. This symphonic work presents Banfield's homage to American musical icons who have impacted him in various ways: Leonard Bernstein, Duke Ellington, Dizzy Gillespie, Miles Davis, and Sarah Vaughan. The musical piece offers aesthetic hybridity and beautiful melodies couched in lush harmonies and extended sonorities carefully crafted by the maestro's pen. It's a panoramic view of high art steeped in the rich cultural milieu of the American social fabric. Clearly, the composer listens to his audience as his music speaks directly to the dynamic lived experiences within these United States, shaped by all colors and creeds. 4 Songs for 5 American Voices, therefore, is actually a song for America, which embodies antiphony, call and response, the blues people, the blue-eyed soul people, the belting, the bel canto, out of love, falling in love, honor, joy, and pain. The ones who have been here, the ones who came here, the ones brought here, the ones who just got here, and the ones who are coming. It's the breathtaking, the breath-giving, the life worth living. All of us, the totality of our collective breathing. Symphony No. 6 is a micro reflection of our vast America. So let us enjoy our song, Dr. William C. Banfield's Symphony No. 6, 4 Songs for 5 American Voices. Thank you.